Hey everyone, welcome to this webinar. I'm pleased to be joined here with Claus Hirzmann. We are first going to let you join us for this discussion. Let me first ask you, where are you joining us from? Where are you watching us from? Is it good day or good morning in this case, or good night or good afternoon, good evening? Tell us a bit about which city, which country. Klaus, where are you currently from right now?
Well, I'm right now located in Germany. I live, however,
Awesome.
in France. Yeah, and it's 10 p.m. here now.
Awesome. Yeah, it's 9 p.m. right now here in Portugal,
Right, got you.
where we are having this lovely conversation. Let us people join us. Uh, let's have fun. Let's have a great deep conversation. Let's enjoy with our participants here today. Um, I'm going to start sharing my screen, and for us to start kicking off this lovely session. And firstly, uh, I would like to sort of introduce myself, introduce Klaus, and this lovely topic regarding strategic finance, sparking innovation and agility. Afterwards, you'll have a sort of a short, brief Q&A session, and afterwards, of course closing with a couple of next steps and how can you learn more from our team today? How can you do more with our suggestions and with the help that Klaus is going to bring with you to your companies? And so let me first start to present my guest here today. So Klaus is a co-founder of Strategic Finance, a startup company that brings the power of financially informed decisions to agility and innovation. The company provides leading edge software for genuinely financial agile business causes uh, and a finance based lean portfolio management. He is also the co author of many different articles with Rita Gunter McGrath and also Joe Valone. He is passionate about strategy, about innovation, and about finance. And for sure, that's one of the main reasons that we both got along really well from the beginning. Myself, I'm Gonçalo Pereira, currently working at the Agile Thinkers consulting team and also education team. And as I said, I'm really pleased to be joined here with Klaus regarding this team in strategy, innovation, and I'm also passionate regarding human factors. Lately, I've been discovering quite deeply interesting topics regarding how everything comes together, how can people and teams work better together regarding these teams and many, many others. And let's first dive into our discussion. Briefly talking you about the World Management and Agility Forum regarding this year, late September 19th to the 21st, where we will be joined with different CEOs, with different strategic decision makers to also unveil and talk more about their use cases, about their business cases, about their stories, and how can you learn more with those. Let me first set the context for this conversation. So, as I was looking into a couple of more detail regarding this theme of strategy, of agile, of finance, of innovation, I was looking into the State of Agility report of 2023 when I come up with two sort of interesting charts. That those are here today. One first that represented how organizations prioritize those delivery goals that they have, and also one regarding the metrics that they use to measure success. And one thing that I found really interesting is that, of course, the end customer satisfaction is the number one, and which is a really important topic and a really important success factor. We have to realize that for you to have a customer, you need to be a provider of some kind. And do not forget the finance side of things, the business, the healthy of your that what can make you still be in the power of be chosen by your customer. And so I was quite surprised to find out that only 27% of the responses of the answers of this report provided and were related into the product revenue increase, and also the budget with 26%, and also the total company revenue increment of 25%. On the other side of stuff, we can find that there is no direct or clear way for us to measure the financial impact regarding the delivery efforts. And so that got me thinking. There might be a way for us to do this thing. And because it's an hypothesis, and I'm putting everything here in an hypothesis, because there can be a financial result regarding, for example, the OKR, so the KPIs that you have, but there's no clear way. And so I was also looking into a couple of the knowledge from this book, Singer on Corners, from Rita McGrath, that she presented that business managers from university schools and all the way that they have and the knowledge that they possess and the information that they have, it really suits them into the middle part in terms of businesses. So in terms of the launch, in terms of the disengage, in terms of exploring your options regarding your business, what should I do in terms of next ideas to implement? What should I do? In terms of those ideas that really worked really well in the past, but they are no longer suited for our company. And so, regarding that theme, I thought to myself, Klaus must really have the answer for us in terms of exploring these options. And so, Klaus, I'm going to pass it over to you and ask you, what else can you say regarding this theme, and what else can you do to help our viewers at home today in this webinar?
All right. Well, thank you very much, Gonçalo, for having the opportunity to share all these ideas with you and your audience. And you're absolutely right with what you've been stating in your analysis. And actually, I work with Gunther McGrath. She's my business partner, and also with Scaled Agile Incorporation, the creators of SAFE. And they actually tell the very same thing. When it comes to agile initiatives, people state that, yes, this reduces risks, but what is the financial number? Rita tells me they all ask for a financial number. And so this is what we can actually discover today. So let me share my screen, and I will walk you through a few thoughts in that sense. Here we go. And yeah, so here we go. And yeah, as Gonçalo, as you pointed out, the middle part, the exploitation part, is certainly perfectly well managed. And I would like to draw your attention to the fact that, of course, when we look at the uncertainty level of the exploitation life cycle phase, then this is a business as usual situation. It is rather of certainty than of uncertainty, but the launch and ramp up steps are of high or significant uncertainty. And if you look at how we manage such situations, we can actually see that in a classic manner, the business as usual initiatives are managed in a waterfall manner, and this as opposed to launch and ramp up initiatives that are better and rather managed actually with agility. And this comes together with the financial valuation aspect. And when we're in the exploitation phase, then of course the NPV provides us with the answer. It's just a classic and useful tool for this, as opposed to launch and ramp up phases where we actually use real options. So the basic point that I'm making here is that it's all about consistency. When we are in an exploitation phase, it's just very consistent to manage this business as usual situation in a waterfall management style, and to evaluate this initiative through net present value calculation, as opposed to situations in a launch or ramp up situation where uncertainty is high or significant enough such that actually waterfall and MPV doesn't work. And this is where actually agility and real options come into the game and allow us to find an answer about, is it worth to invest in such initiatives that are in this early life cycle stage of launch and ramp up. And this is, of course, of tremendous interest because, we know, as you can see from this figure beautifully from Rita McGrath, that any exploitation phase will find an end, and we need actually to bring to life a full pipeline of new initiatives that take over, right? And let me illustrate this briefly, this idea of this consistency. So here I'm taking a look at this exploitation phase, and as mentioned, this is as we're exploiting our current business. It's a business as usual situation, right? And we manage in waterfall and NPV. Consistency is here the name of the game, and such projects are nicely depicted in those phases that are shown here with these breaks here, the blue breaks that are representing investment steps, multiple phases of investments that may follow one after the other. We have got here a time scale, of course. And once all these investments have been done, then we are pretty at ease with predicting what return these investments will generate, and these return on investments are shown here on the yellow bricks, right? And this is all consistent because we are pretty sure, we believe that the situation is rather predictable, and this predictability is indeed expressed through this linear structure of the project. The name, of course, the evaluation is then done by calculating the net present value. The net present value conceptually is a measure of expected value creation. And expected value creation simply means, well, we are creating value, which means we are creating a return which is in excess of, well, the investments that we've done, but also in excess of the time value of money. That concept then that, from your bank account, that there are interest rates that reflect that time value of money. And then there is also a risk premium. So basically, even when we talk about net present value calculation, even if you talk about business as usual projects, there is still a notion of, well, some level of uncertainty, which actually means that these returns they may actually vary somewhat, but not too much. But still, this requires a risk premium that is paid to the investor. And by the way, these last two portions here, you know that they're actually implemented in net present value calculation by the process of discounting. Right. Good. Well, just as a reminder to put things into perspective, and then, of course, if the net present value is positive, this actually concludes on excess return, right? Excess of return. So there's positive value creation, and the commitment of the investor is entire. So the investor is committed to the entire investment. Now, key point again, this here is consistent. Now, things get inconsistent if we are having uncertain projects, if we find ourselves in a launch phase life cycle or in ramp-up life cycle. And we can, if we stick with this kind of tree structure, we can give voice to that uncertainty by being this time explicit. And this explicit uncertainty can, in a very simple example here, simply be shown by telling that, well, I can still do all these investments, but then I'm not sure at all about what returns these investments may produce. Maybe in an optimistic scenario, they will generate these higher in returns, but maybe in a reasonably lower scenario, we may come up with those lower ones, with these pessimistic ones. And so here we are giving voice in a very simple manner to the uncertainty we may experience in these life cycle phases. And this is where we are entering actually a dilemma. We are inconsistent in our approach, which then becomes actually apparent when we calculate net present values. When we calculate them for the optimistic scenario and for the pessimistic scenario, and typically what we will find in such launch or ramp up settings, in such innovative settings, is that the optimistic NPV is positive as opposed to the reasonably pessimistic one. And this then is actually a sign of uncertainty, a level of uncertainty that is such that we can no longer make use of the net present value criteria as a measure for expected value creation. And so we're entering this inconsistency in terms of our situation and the way we manage it, and then the question is, so how can we proceed in this case? Shall we gamble? Shall we hope that we are making that we actually end up in the optimistic scenario and we go for it and invest? But actually, no, this is not satisfactory. We are not meant to take that level of risk in a corporate environment. So shall we do the opposite and don't move just by fear of ending up in that negative, in that pessimistic scenario? And again, no, that's not satisfactory, because this would mean that we are just, omitting any future opportunity, and we can't afford that, of course. So what's the way out? And well, it's great to talk today to agile thinkers, because of course you know that the answer is agility. And I like really to quote here that saying that says, never test the depth of a river with both feet. And this beautifully expresses the idea of agility, right? Because if there is uncertainty, well, the great way forward is not to gamble. The great way forward is not to do nothing. No, the great way forward is agility. Agility meaning iterations where we progress, like stepping with 1 foot into that river. And that progress allows us to discover something. As Rita McGrath says, discovery-driven growth. We want to do progress such that we discover something. And according to what we have discovered, in our example, is the river too deep or not? Well, we can adapt. We take our best choice. And to stick again with the river, if we discover that the river is too deep where we had put the food, then we can withdraw, because we didn't jump in the river with both feet. So we can withdraw and take another step somewhere else, or if we can move on, we do, right? So key here is that we are able to adapt, and we are able to adapt because we have learned, we have discovered. And we have discovered because our progress steps that we have been doing, they were designed such that they provide us with this discovery. Right? This is the key. This is the spirit theme that we need to put it to implement. And let me right away give you an example that I've been experiencing when I worked for corporate strategy in a big IT company, international. We were strong everywhere in the world except the US, and we intended to address the US through a highly innovative IT product. And let me tell you how you craft an agile innovation initiative. Actually, we are just doing what we just discussed with the river example. So first of all, we are telling, what are we hoping for? What is our dream? What do we find on the other side of that river, right? If everything goes well, what is our dream? What are we talking about? Is it a 2 million business, 5, 10, 20, 50? What are we talking about? And we can't tell that, right? Because we know that, we know we are excited by this innovative idea, because we can exactly imagine that situation. Optimistic ROI means high unit prices, great sales volume or market share, good cost containment, right? And we can tell that. What you also can tell when we describe that dream is another aspect, which is the uncertainty. The uncertainty for reaching that dream. And here we're getting back to this agile approach. For each uncertainty, we would like to progress and discover, right? So we must be clear about our uncertainties and progress and discover accordingly. And in our case, our first question was, well, this is a difficult product. So is it technically feasible? So our progress consisted in creating a prototype or trying to create a prototype. And so this required some, so this is shown here on the left-hand side with this blue investment brick. It's an agile step, or to express myself in safe terminology, this is a PI. So this PI requires an investment of 10, such that it has all resources to do that prototyping attempt. It takes some duration, let's say 1 year. And at the end, we can observe a result. Let's say in this case, just 2 results, either pass or fail. If it's fail, we will stop. If it's pass, we can move on. Okay, great. Second uncertainty was about the market acceptance. How will the US market respond to this type of IT product? And we said, well, let's show the prototype. And this is much stronger in terms of leading indicator than showing just a PowerPoint or so, right? And so again, this requires some investment to provide the resources necessary for that activity. It has a duration, and at the end, we can observe results. And then there was another uncertainty about the commercial success. So if you ever build a first version, what could that commercial success be? And so here we were actually thinking about building this first version, and in parallel to do pre-sales activities. So by the time that first version was ready, we also had some pre-sales, some decent pre-sales figures that could indicate us whether the sales outlook is highly attractive or less so. And for simplicity, I'm just showing 2 here, but you can have as many as you want. And then once this is done, we actually have our building blocks, and then we create the entire project by assembling these steps. And this assembly, is actually then representing adaptation. Because if you look at it, we can see this here very nicely. If I do the first PI, I invest in the first step, then I progress. I observe a result. And according to that result, I do navigate. And according to what I have discovered, I may stop investing because that's the adequate thing to do, or I may adapt and continue investing because that's the adequate thing to do, right? So what you can see here is that this tree indeed represents progress, right? Discovery and adaptation. All right. And the assembly strategies here for such trees is typically fail cheap and fail fast. Fail cheap means make sure that the earliest investments are as low as possible, because they are the riskiest ones. And fail fast means, if you can, start with those steps that have the highest probability of failure, right? And well, to complete that tree, we then found that actually, well, we build first a prototype. We may, if everything goes right, continue with checking out the market risk, the market acceptance. If this goes well, we may then move on with building the first version and do pre-sales. And only if then pre-sales are highly successful, then we would actually be able to reach our dream up here by doing yet another investment to further push that product to a version 2 that would really fully exploit the full set of functionality, and then really we would have a great product that actually addresses a fantastic market, our dream situation. This is the entire description. And what you can see here is that Well, this is truly agile. It represents progress, discovery, and adaptation. And for doing so, we are using the usual suspects that we know so well from net present value calculation. We are talking about steps that require investment and some time. We are talking about return on investments here. And we are talking, in addition, also about explicit uncertainty expression. So this requires also assigning probabilities to possible results after each PI. And this overall tree is actually very quickly built. So your business casing is high speed. And on this basis, we can now also calculate the value of expected value creation. And let me do that right now. So I'm switching from that description, from that as input now to the financial valuation that tells us whether our Agile initiative is worth it. And when I say Agile initiative, in terms of SAFEs, this would be epics or business agility value streams. So each PI actually here, each of these PIs can be understood as an option on the next one, right? An option on the next one, and so on, and an option on success, right? So basically, these agile steps that are bound to uncertainty, that discover the result, and that are agile at the end, they have exactly the same properties as options in the financial world. We can perfectly represent them as options, and we call them real options simply because these are real projects as opposed to financial stock options. All right, so we can put numbers on this. And actually, to tell a bit more about the properties of this real option calculation, first of all, it also provides us with an expected value creation. The very same thing as net present value. The results compare apple to apple, right? You can compare a result from net present value with a result from real options. Both are talking about expected value creation. Now, what's particular with real options is, first of all, that we are here in the world of explicit uncertainty description, right? Remember, I said initially, when it comes to the NPV, we have got a risk premium. So this is an implicit uncertainty expression. Here we are having an explicit one, explicit throughout these branches in our tree structure. And we had just seen that we are representing agility, right? The fact that we are discovering, that we are progressing to discover, and we are agile, right? And this agility then also actually lowers our risk. And all this has to be taken into account when we calculate the expected value creation of options. So we're actually exploiting this explicit, specific risk description in this tree, right? So this calculation does not at all go like discounting, as you know, from net present value. This is actually done by a technique that is called replication, but the properties are here. And when we perform the calculation, so with agility, our net option value of this very first step here is actually 11.1. So the expected value creation is positive 11.1. So basically, this means that the real option value, if I invest 10 here in this next PI, I actually receive as return an option on the success. And this option on the success has a value of 21.1. But to buy the option, I have to invest 10, so minus 10. And this leads to the net real option value. And this is what is shown here on this tree. It's 11.1. So basically, this tells that, yes, investing in this step is like buying an option on success. And there is positive value creation expected, plus 11.1. And the conclusion from that consideration is remarkable because it is actually just about launching the very next step, right? We can tell that if I spend 10, my net option value is positive, so go for it. But we have not told whether we will do the other investments here. We don't know yet. We will see later. depending on what we will have learned. And by the way, you can see that when we invest later, you can see that the bigger investments here, this bigger investment, will be done at some later step when we will have learned, maybe, that it's worthwhile. So that's great. This dramatically decreases our investment risk, because a big investment will be only done if the previous uncertainties have resolved positively. Fantastic from an investment perspective. Now, what is also remarkable is that if we had used in such a setting a rigid approach, which would be a net present value, right? So by presuming that we are pre-committed to all investments, despite of uncertain returns, we would have gotten this number here, minus 34. We would have rejected that initiative entirely. And what this tells us is that actually, thanks to the Agile approach, we have been able to do three things, very precious things. We have been able to decide quickly, right? We are able to seize opportunities, right? Despite of their uncertainty, right? Because we are taking that Agile approach where we can very quickly decide just on, is it worthwhile to take the very next step? And also, we are avoiding here cost of hesitancy, the cost of non-decision. Probably you all know what I'm talking about. It happens so easily in companies that we are burning fuel, right? We are spending, we have a burn rate of running cost, but we actually, don't use these spendings in an efficient way because we are still waiting for giving it a green light. And then financial steering, very important here. We are able to do that because, well, I mentioned that we are reducing risks by proceeding in that agile manner, because bigger investments come later when risks are lower, and we can optimize values, for example, by getting the right sequence or putting things in parallel here. And also, there is an innovation culture, very important. We must not forget that. When it comes to innovation, people may be scared to overcommit or to fail if they don't get to the very end of the project. But here we have been telling what are the possible pathways of our agile project. Right from the beginning, our sponsor knows that. So the sponsor knows if we ever invest 10, it just allows us to progress, to discover. And maybe we'll discover that we better stop, right? In our cases was, well, prototype is not feasible, no need to imagine to move on, right? So yes, so in this case, stopping is not sign of failing, it's sign of learning. Very different dynamics, right? Very different. Right, and then another important point is, as Steve Jobs says, focus. Because if you look at it, we have been able to express our dream. People are typically, in the net present value world, they are hesitant to do that because they are afraid of overcommitment. But here we are telling, well, maybe we reach that, but maybe we reach other results, or maybe none. We are transparent. We are not promising what we can't promise. We are telling what may happen, not what will happen, right? And as we have been expressing this dream here, we are doing justice to the innovators. They have been dreaming of it. We are telling, we are accounting for it. But then, if you're concluding that there is no expected value creation nor sufficient expected value creation, then we can disregard without regret. Focus. Good. And then, if we move on, actually. Two aspects I would like to mention. What we have just discussed is about accepting a project, because it provides for an expected positive value creation in its next PI. And what is now important is that this acceptance means that this initiative goes into the adequate portfolio. And I say adequate because it's vital that we distinguish portfolios. And we distinguish them actually, at least according to these life cycle phases that Rita has told us, right? The launch the ramp up, and the exploit life cycle, right? And we can identify those life cycles beautifully in these tree structures, right? At the very beginning, when we start with this initiative, we may, figure out lots of things that then lead by the end to product or service. But once this is done, we are trying to bring that to the market and to ramp up to as high sales volumes as possible. So this would be then represented in this middle tree structure here. And then once this is set, we then find ourselves in this linear exploitation phase where we are back to, well, the business as usual setting, right? And of course, we must make sure that our initiatives are financially compared inside the adequate portfolio according to the life cycles, because otherwise the exploitation would probably always win, right? And we would underfund the other phases. So once we have performed the actual question about is a project or an agile innovation initiative acceptable, then it goes into the portfolio, and then within that portfolio, it can then compete for financing. And here comes an important aspect. We have got a budget envelope, just an envelope. We did not budget what initiative will be financed. We will find this out very dynamically as things progress and we discover results. We will have checkpoints and we ask again, okay, what is now the best way to reallocate our budget envelope into the next steps of each of our projects in our portfolio. And they actually will need to compete for that budget envelope simply because we have probably much more ideas than budget, right? And you may know from SAFe that what you can use here is the WSJF prioritization criteria, and the beauty is that we can do this now in a fully financial manner. Okay, let me just take 2 minutes to show this real quick on the actual tool, if you agree.
For sure, for me, I think our viewers will love it, and let's go.
Okay. Okay, great, thank you so much. So I've opened here for you a portfolio with multiple projects, and what you can see is that they all have progressed to some point in time, and here so the first January, beginning of 2026 here, yeah. And I've got many projects here, and I can now actually enter a portfolio view, and let me just quickly progress here towards, oh no, I'm sorry, let me first do something preparatory. When you look at WSJF within SAFe, you're actually looking at the cost of delay, and this is something we can calculate thanks to real options. You'll see here that the first step of this project here has an expected net value creation of 301, and I can perform a cost of delay analysis on this. And here is where you see how this expected value creation evolves over time. Let me, for example, induce here a delay of one year. So what that presumes is that, well, if this project was delayed by 1 year, it actually decreased its expected value solution to 83, right? From 301 to 83. So this means that actually this cost of delay is 218. So this is an opportunity cost. It doesn't leave our pocket, but it's a loss in expected value creation. So if in a portfolio setting, I choose to delay this project to give priority to another one, this project could then suffer this cost of delay of 218. So we are actually able to calculate cost of delay, and this is for the first time that we can do that. So if I'm getting back to the portfolio view here, and let me fast forward here to the checkpoint of beginning of January, you see that the system can calculate for all of these individual projects actually the cost of delay. And so we can now see that for each Agile initiative, we can see what is the required investment into the very next PI. But you can also see what would be the cost of delay if we did not give priority to this initiative in this next funding round. And if you calculate the weighted shortest job first, this is then cost of delay divided by the required investment. And this gives us a figure that tells us how significant our immediate investment will prevent us from cost of delay. So if for each dollar or each euro I'm investing in this case here, immediately I will avoid a cost of delay of 8 euros, 8.87 euros. So you can see that this is pretty efficient, right? So if I compare with some other projects, I would just avoid, for each euro I invest immediately, I would avoid a loss of just 1 euro and 2 cents, or 3.49 euros, and so on. So this gives us actually a criteria for financial criteria for actually allocating our budget. I've got here a budget envelope for the next round, and I can have the system allocate. And this is the proposed allocation of our funding, right? So those would be then funded, and those that are not checkmarked, they wouldn't be funded. They consequently would be delayed and would suffer from that cost of delay. And then we start over in the next checkpoint. And all this is very dynamic, because should there be any new opportunity, it just kicks in and can trigger a new checkpoint, and we take it from there. So that's really quickly what I wanted to show from that software. And having said that, I actually would like to wrap up with stating well, what benefits did we now discover from these capabilities? Well, we have seen that we are able to, by managing this way, we create higher value and we lower risks, and we dispose, and financial decision makers dispose of really rational matrices for the financial steering of innovation. So in the first step, to accept or not projects. If they reject them, they can do this without regret. If they accept, well, we can steer. At each checkpoint, we can decide to continue, or to stop, or to pivot, or to expand, or to shrink, or whatever. But then we can also, at the lean portfolio level, decide, well, shall we finance it right now, or shall we give priority to others? And we didn't cover this today, but there is also the capability of zero-based budgeting to make sure that we actually create a plan for a budget that is sufficient to achieve the right level of innovation intensity, which is precious as well. And from the innovator side, well, you see here that between finance and innovators, there is a red heart, right? So actually, we reconcile both worlds that were maybe separated in many cases so far. So great news for agilists, because also top management can now work with a financial representation of this agile way of proceeding, and agile transformations may have even greater success because of top management buy-in. And the innovators on their side, they can be truly free to express their dream, the uncertainties for reaching the dream, and their lean agile approach. All right, so having said that, our software, well, you have seen it, covers lean business casing and lean portfolio management, and it's fully compatible with SAFe and with Rita McGrath's discovery-driven growth approach and lean startup methods. And it's 100% backward compatible with the previous financial valuation methods for real options that is called Cox Ross Rubenstein. So this is also very reassuring for your CFO. And let me stop here. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm available with pleasure for any questions and comments.
That was fun. Thank you so much, Claus, for that presentation. I mean, I think nowadays we have passed through a pandemic. There have been a couple of wars that it appeared all of a sudden, and so it's always very, very useful to have those options available for us to keep in mind. Okay, what what is in for us regarding everything that we might or should or shouldn't do regarding these business ideas. And so that's one of the first thing that I loved about your solution. I have a couple of questions of my own regarding that, if I may.
Please.
It's about the percentages of the taking the risk regarding, if because people there might exist people that are really comfortable with the risk, and others who are more um, stable, who are more risk avoidable kind of persons. In that way, how is the tool interactive between the decision maker and also the context of the world? Like, how does this risk um, in both interact, both affect these real options that you just exposed?
Yeah, so the tool is actually a calculator, right? So you're entering your assumptions, and the tool calculates from this what is your risk level that you've been expressing explicitly, and therefore what is a fair value, fair expected value, right? And so basically, the user expresses his or her risk by two things: by the spread of possible values, right? We have been talking about the dream, optimistic returns, but also pessimistic ones, maybe some in between. And then what also is significant for the risk level is the probability distribution that goes with these value distributions. And of course, like any business case, what we're trying to do in business cases is to capture expert knowledge, right? Like in NPV, right? And I've seen that people are actually very comfortable with doing all these, because actually giving that degree of freedom to express our uncertainty actually avoids the necessity to predict an uncertain future. How crazy would that be? It has never been done, right? So if you actually relieve people from that, they can, they progress so quickly, right? Because they can tell what may happen. What they can't tell is what will happen. So we just ask them, okay, tell what may happen and what you may do. And because you shall tell what you may do, it's very important that you know where you are in your tree. So this is for why this discovery aspect is so important. As we discover, we know where we are in the tree, and therefore we know what is best to do next, right? And this is how we then manage our risks, right? So there is uncertainty and risk right from the beginning, but by being actually adaptive, we are always taking the optimum choice. From a financial perspective, we are investing when it's justified. We stop when it's justified. Maybe we increase our investment if it's justified because we want to seize an opportunity, or we downside it, right? So we are not promising what we can promise. We are not telling to our sponsor, listen, this is an uncertain endeavor, but by the end we're promising return. No, what we're telling is we promise that we are providing here a sound description of the situation by using the tree structure that tells, first of all, explicitly, hey, this is our uncertainty. This is what we're trying to, but here's also the dream. And this is how we manage this, right? And then when it comes to doing this description, it's actually natural, right? People can right away tell. And of course, you must make sure that people are not start cheating. For example, probabilities are always a question. How is probabilities? May people be biased or something? But the beauty here is that, first of all, people are I've never seen that people can't give a probability, right? They are very much at ease with this. And this is no surprise, because they have got the gut feeling that, hey, there's an opportunity. So it's just consistent that they're able to describe it somewhat. Maybe not to full accuracy, but accurate enough such that we can actually seize kind of the level of uncertainty in terms of value and probability distribution, and also and come up with meaningful adaptation, right? And this is the key, right? So actually, this is a very natural and intelligible way of describing the situation, and everybody knows how to describe this, right? This matches the perception of business owners. We are all used to discuss about investments, about timing, about returns, and also probabilities is not an issue, right? And this is actually for why I'm right now, presenting all this topic, because the idea of real options is not new, it's proven. It's just that the method of Cox-Ross-Rubinstein was bound to expressing uncertainties in a very non-natural way. Business owners were having a hard time. They were asked like, hey, what's the volatility of the value of your business? They say, hold it, what are you talking about, right? And this is over because my contribution to this field is actually to have made sure that business owners can express their assumptions in just the tree structure you had seen, right? With investments, returns of investments, with timing and with probabilities. And now all of a sudden it becomes just, we're just opening access to that field. And everybody, and so if people believe that some estimates are exaggerated, well, everybody can contribute to that discussion. So this then should really help to have, capture the best expert knowledge in that regard.
I like it the way you exposed, like in a couple of moments ago, the metaphor regarding the stepping stones in a river. In a way, it's also a transparency tool regarding your options. It can be really useful in the discussions regarding your peers, teammates, board executives, and so on, so on, so on. And in a way, it's sort of getting a more understanding where are you putting your feet into the stepping stone regarding the different options that you have. I like that. I like that part a lot.
Yeah, and you were not good point indeed. Actually, I've got customers who tell that, you know what, even without doing the quantification, just by discussing the possible scenarios that may happen and how we approach them, how we navigate them, this was already a relief to people. They just felt that they left the world of uncertainty and start managing it. They felt just for this comfortable. And then, of course, you still will at some point be interested in the financial side of it, because by the end of the day, you need to decide, do I go for it? Do I not go for it? And on portfolio level, well, which initiative gets priority? Yeah.
For sure. I would just like to ask you one more final question before we close this webinar. I may start with it's a so far a lovely time with you spending here today. You shared a lot of key takeaways, key haha moments. What would be the biggest one that you have from a customer of yours? For example, the one case scenario that you presented. Like, what's the biggest thing that you feel? I'm sure that I mean you have shared so many different ones, but what is the biggest one? And for the viewers at home, what would be like really in for them as the biggest thing that the tool can do for their businesses?
Okay, the biggest thing is, as Rita told it, to provide the number. And Scaled Agile tells me the same thing. They have 20,000 companies that use SAFe, and they're all asking, what is the ROI of this epic? Because agility, as just with crossing the river, as we discussed, this decreases risks. But for the financial decision makers, this is good, but insufficient. They need to understand whether there is a positive expected value creation. And in the case of business as usual scenarios, NPV will be the consistent way of doing so. And when we're taking an agile approach, the consistent way of doing that math is real options, because each agile step, each PI is actually an option on the next. So option valuation applies here. Yeah, so the biggest key takeaway, and I hear this everywhere, is by the end of the day, when we talk to the C-level suite, there needs to be a number. And this is expected value creation. Yeah.
So awesome, so awesome. Just before we go, let me share with our viewers a couple of key ideas of where they can learn more from, from you. We have, if you are interested in having sort of a run with this tool, just scan this QR code. Let's have a chat. Let's get this conversation to a different level. Let's get into exploring your options, into a better decision making, into a more transparent. Again, and I feel like I'm repeating myself, but again, it's all about these things, like transparency in terms of options and in terms of your financial decisions. Here you can find a couple of slots available for discussion here with Klaus. And yeah, do you have a final word for our viewers, Klaus?
This tool actually that we're suggesting is really leading edge and is very intuitive. As you had seen, the assumptions that are expressed are very intuitive, and the tool continues along those lines. So you will be very efficient, and you will be able to manage your portfolio at each regular checkpoint in a very efficient manner, and really to focus on analysis and optimum decision making.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Klaus. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks to
I
you.
feel like I learned a lot today, and so I hope our viewers did too as well. Thank you for sticking us until the end, and hope to see you soon next time, both here on a slot to chat with us, or later in another webinar session that we are going to have, or even in our conference later in September. So thanks so much. Have a great time. Thank you, Klaus, once again. It's been a pleasure.
Great pleasure. Thanks to you, and stay in touch. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.